Okay. Thank you all for coming. I'm happy to share with you some of experiences and about Gaza and disability and inclusive education in Gaza at two levels, schools and universities levels. And let me express my sincere thanks also to Dina, Professor Dina Kiwan, for arranging this visit and this lecture, and as part of Disability Under Siege project between Palestine, Birzeit Universities, Islamic University of Gaza, and Birmingham, as well as other partners in Britain and in Jordan. Many thanks also to my colleagues in the program, in the project, Vera Coppens and also Sarah Martins, who have been working energetically in full capacity to make my travel, my dream in traveling and coming to UK becomes true. So I'm here. Thank you. Let me, as you can see, this is the title of my presentation today. I'm trying to be brief as much as I can in the allocated time to me, because it's a big issue. We're talking about inclusiveness, so we need to exclude some ideas. And maybe through your questions, we can elaborate more. I will talk about four things today. Why inclusive education is important in general, especially in context of conflict and challenges like Gaza. Second, I will talk about some education-related context in Palestine. Third, I will classify the challenges which represent the heart of this presentation into 5 categories, and I will mention briefly these 5 categories, and then I will move to stories about success, and I would like to call them hope, resilience, and success stories from schools, from universities, to show that yes, Gaza normally and Palestine is given a lot of attention on the dark side, on the conflict. No, we have a bright side, and I always focus on the bright side of the other coin. The media focus on the black side, and I call it a black side in terms of negative, and war and conflict and victims and whatever. No, let's see. Also, Gaza has a lot of things to share with the whole world about resilience, about defiance, about success, about partnership, about collaboration, networking, productivity, research, and so on. So let me share with you tiny things today in the time allocated. Why we need inclusive education? There are many reasons. First of all, it's a human right, basic human rights to every child, to every human, has to get education. According to SDG goals, 4, 4.5, etc. Second, it helps the children, especially persons with children and learners and students with disability, to fulfill potential and improve their lives and contribute in sustainable development. See, we are all of us are humans. All of us are sons and daughters of Adam and Eve. So we can work together regardless of any other things, man-made created artificial borders between humans. Second, it, as I mentioned, tackles discrimination and injustices against our brothers and sisters and sons and daughters and fathers and mothers who are part of our community wherever they are. Especially, it's enough that they are suffering conflict impact and violence impact in context in areas that suffer such conflict. And also it helps them to learn and flourish according to their own talents and interests and capabilities, taking into consideration that Gaza and especially Gaza and Palestine, has almost the highest rate of unemployment in the whole world, especially in besieged, small, tiny, highly populated Gaza. Next, enables them to secure other rights through their lifetime, like the project we are doing just now. How can they? We want to empower them to tell stories, how to use media to talk about their stories, to talk about their aspirations, to talk about their needs, to talk about their skills. So this is what we are trying to empower them, so they become as effective as they want, develops better social relationship interactions and communications, reinforce self-confidence, resilience, and positive self-image. These are very important. So we take into consideration full image, mental health, economic improvement, social improvement, linguistic competence, technology, also health issues. So it's inclusive. It covers all aspects of our life. And I don't want to say their life, our life. We are one. We are one family, and we belong to Adam and Eve. And definitely they spoke one language. Nobody knows what is it, what that language was. Helps them understand the whole world through sign language and through Braille and through channels of communication and media, in which they live and become more confident, innovative, questioning, thoughtful, and open-minded to contribute positively to the development of society. So this is, I think I'm not saying something new, but I'm emphasizing the importance of adopting inclusive education for persons with disabilities in all over the world, specifically in context of challenges and pressure and pain, let me say, which is the case of Gaza. Next is, let's talk about context of Gaza. First of all, Gaza, 70% almost of its population, which is 2.3 million in the 10 of Sardines. It's one of the most populated area on earth. 70% are refugees. So we're talking about refugees, and we're talking about disability. We're talking about different impact. 70% of the Palestinians live, 7 million. The Palestinians are 14 million plus, and they increase per hour because the birth rate is very high among Palestinians. So when you say 14 million people live, or 50% of them live in Palestine, and the other 7 million live in refugees in Jordan, in Lebanon, in Syria mainly, and all over the world. So you're talking about more than the population of both Finland and Norway, the Palestinian people. So it's not 1,000, 2,000, no, we are 14 million. This is a fact that is important to understand the context. And part of that, so 42% of them are refugees living in the West Bank and Gaza. 42% of the 7 millions living in Gaza, in Palestine, in their homeland, so are living in many refugee camps. Okay, these refugee camps, is run by UNRWA, United Nations Relief and Work Agency, and this has been running all these camps, including education, for the last 75 years. I hope it's time to change. It's enough. 75 years of being a refugee, waiting and hoping and dreaming. And one day, the dreams become true. Okay, and next is impact of conflict, occupation, and siege. It's a fact that we are occupied. It's a fact that Gaza has been under siege. It's a fact that the West Bank is isolated into different cities. These are facts. Okay, what is the impact of these facts on education? Okay, this isolation and division between Gaza, West Bank, Jerusalem has created three systems of education. One system belongs to the Palestinian Authority, mainly Ministry of Education, and one belongs to the run by UNRWA, and one by private sector. The government or the Ministry of Education runs about 65% of the school system, and UNRWA about 25%, and private sector 10%. So the burden is on the government mainly, and the Palestinian Authority. Second fact about this, being under occupation, living in context of conflict, made learning unsafe to children. The Palestinians, especially in the West Bank, are divided into areas, A, B, C. And some areas Palestinians cannot go to, and some areas that the Palestinians have to get permits to go to their homes. Or to their schools. So some children sometimes find difficulties in going to their schools or feel unsafe. Here are two examples with some facts. 50,000 Palestinian children enrolled in 183 schools living in Area C of the West Bank, fully controlled by Israel, this Area C, lack safe access to education, and more than 1,700 children from 37 West Bank communities commute to schools more than 5 kilometers a day for children with bags to go to that, because Palestinian, some roads we're not allowed to drive on. And next, another example is given from the Norwegian Refugee Council, which works actively in Palestine for refugees. It said or reported that 10 attacks on Palestinian education per month by Israeli authorities and center, most of them on education institutions. Israeli forces of private security sometimes, even when we start incursions on a village, like what's happening now on a refugee camp near Jerusalem, it has been besieged for a few days, hunting for one Palestinian. So what happens to schools? What happened to children? That's beyond our story today. Okay, that's another story. Next. Living under tight siege. I'll talk a bit about Gaza because it's a context, part of a larger context. Gaza has been under siege for the last 16 years, and nobody, or almost no government, says, please lift the siege. It's enough for these 2.3 million people who cannot travel, who cannot buy what they want, who cannot go wherever they want and whenever they want, and they are in a cage and a prison called Gaza Strip. It took me 7 months of hard work and planning and doing and communicating and hundreds of emails and meetings to be able to come here. This is something, imagine complete generation of Palestinians who are now who are almost 40, never left Gaza. They know nothing about Gaza. When did they leave Gaza? Okay, let me say this. I was traveling once through Egypt, coming to the UK, and there was a young lady who was maybe 27, something like that, and the taxi driver was going through Sinai. So it would take 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours in normal situations without other issues. And the driver drove for about 2 hours. And then she was phoning her mom. And she was speaking while all of us in the taxi. And she said, oh, how much small is Gaza? We have been driving for 2 hours and we haven't just arrived the Suez Canal, which is almost halfway between Gaza and Cairo. And she was like a bird when it was a cage, and now she's flying high in the sky, feeling, small Gaza. So this is the first time her eyes drive a car for more than 1 hour, because from north to south, 28 kilometers. by just 6-7 kilometers or miles. So you can just, with a small scissor, you can cut Gaza into two halves, because especially in the middle area where I live. Okay, so this siege, with its impact on building schools, and buying equipment, to buy a computer, a laptop, is a dream to many schools, to universities. To buy equipment, it costs double or triple sometimes the real cost, because we cannot import or cannot buy on our own. Cannot adapt, we cannot buy equipment and get funds to adapt the schools to suit children, or universities to suit university students. And this is amazing fact. The last one is 70% of UNRWA schools and 63 of government schools operate on double or a triple shift. Does this mean anything to you? Shift means schools come at 7, that's one school, comes from 7 to 11, only 4 hours. And then they go home, children and teachers. And then another school comes in the same classes, in the same everything, with complete different teachers and headmaster, etc., and they come from 11:30, so live half an hour gap, and then start half 11, and then 4 hours, and then the same third hour. That's what we call it shift. Okay, and these are reports from international institutions, not my Nazmi reports. They are not personal. These facts, if you want to know more, you can visit our website, our project, Disability Under Siege. You can find more details about these facts, well documented and well cited according to international organizations, including UNRWA, UNDP, UNESCO, UNICEF, and so on. So this is what we call a double or triple shift. This is what happens in case of core courses like maths and science and enjoying this, working in a school. Who are going to be more victimized? Children with disability. They will be deprived to be given enough time and proper teaching and sufficient using tutoring or giving so much attention to them that will not work well with them. So this is the victim, the impact of such double and triple shifts. It's a fact. Last son of mine, in fact, spent 6-7 years. He's going in the evening session, and he hated that. He comes to school at 11, leaves home at 11 to go to school 11:30, and then he comes, especially in summer when it's very hot. This is not the way we learned how schools work. Normally very early morning. That's all over the world, except Gaza's special. Okay. Next, what kind of disability Palestinian school children have, and the percentage of each, that we can see articulation disorder, the speech disorder, is the highest, which represents 30%. Second comes visual impairment and completely blind children, 27, and then 17% hard hearing and deaf students, and then another 7 mobility, physical mobility. Among the children, physical mobility is 17, not the top, but among adult Palestinians is the top as a result of violence and shoot to disable policy that was established years ago and decades ago against Palestinians, using snipers to shoot on the knees with explosive or bullets that can explode and can cause a lot of damage to the bones. And last is 9% of the children enrolled in schools have mental disability. Now these are the basic things. That how to deal with these, that's another story. We understood now the situation and how we can deal with these. Now if you go to school, to universities, we can find that 45% are visually impaired. Of the 700 something students, according to last statistics, I got no statistics before that project. Thanks to Dina, we started collecting data from university. How many students do you have? Males, females, this types of visibility, and we have tabulated all this data, so I could present this. I visited different websites, Palestinian Statistics Bureau. Unfortunately, no specific statistics on that. Physically, second comes physically, 35, and third, hearing impaired. Of course, other disabilities almost do not exist. But this is the main bulk. There are two main reasons. There are many reasons, but two main reasons I can see why we have so many persons and children with disability. One is genetic, maybe during pregnancy, as happens in any country, or during delivery, or marriage from close blood relatives, cousins. Get married. It's allowed in our culture, but there are certain people you can't get married to, aunts, nephews, nieces, etc. But if you can get married to your cousin. Sometimes when they get cousins, and sometimes double cousins, it means the parents are brothers and the mothers are sisters. So they are double relatives. And this, in many cases, this leads to disability. Second, illnesses, as it happens in everywhere. And last is, of course, occupation. Of course, the measures, not even to take children to travel to Egypt or to Jordan to get medication. That's another, it's a big problem. So this, maybe someone has a problem with his eyes and he cannot get proper medication in Gaza, and he wants to go to Jordan or to Egypt to get medication. He can't travel, and that's one procedure. Plus, also targeting families, wars, etc., could lead to this. Plus, the stress and the trauma. It causes mental disability, because children, when war happens, they get very scared. I remember briefly, and I documented this and wrote a story about this during the first war, when my son was young. He told Nazmi, but Dad, what happens if a rocket hits our house? I said, okay. This surprised me. And I said, I thought for a few seconds and said, we will go to paradise. That's the answer I could think of. And he was about 6 years old or so. We go to paradise. Then he's sharp. He said, what happens if some of us die and some don't? I said, okay, they can survive. Then he asked me a third question. What happens if we get some of our body parts amputated and we live with disability? And that made me crazy. And then I wrote this like diaries, several diaries on my website about how children feel during conflict. Now, this affects their mental, psychological, physical. They don't feel they are safe. Especially, imagine, from 2009, 2022, we have how many years? 13 years? 5 wars. Imagine this generation lived 5 wars, plus other things, siege, plus theft, living under continuing a threat. There might be war tomorrow, there might be attacks tomorrow, or next week, or next month. Always on the news saying this. Okay, so this is another problem that we need to tackle, because this is also mental disability. it causes mental disability. Okay, challenges, 5 categories. One is awareness, misconceptions, and attitude, beliefs. This is important because if we start with this, then actions can follow. If our beliefs are solid, clear, valid, right, then our actions are likely to be so. Second is policy making and decision making. 3, practices. 4, interpersonal communication and the human relations between all people in an inclusive environment. And last, facilities and supporting. We'll go through them one by one quickly. If we look at the family members, school and university teachers and administrators and community members and school and university peers, most of them do not have they don't have specialized awareness about, okay, we are the same. These are individual differences. It's normal to have someone who can hear better than someone else, or see someone better than someone else. I use glasses, maybe someone doesn't use. It's normal. I use hearing aid, maybe someone doesn't need. So it's normal. That's the perception and attitude, and that has to be tackled. We need to work on beliefs. Second, the attitude is normally sympathetic, just sympathize with people, but not empathetic, not empathy, and not supporting, and not something ethical, something related to my conscience. I have to believe in this. We don't want just, I feel pity for him, or for no. That's the case. We need to work on that, and I think through the project we are doing this as much as we can. 3, also there are different attitudes towards different disability. Maybe physical is something seen as not as negative as other, because most of those who have physical disability were shot in the knees or because of war, so they are seen as culturally heroes. They are sacrificing their body for their country, but it wasn't their choice to be like that. It is beyond their choice. So, okay, these are also, but see, also perception of mental disability could be the most negative. Again, it's due to we need to build, to work on beliefs and cultural principles and perception as a starting point. Without that, no change will take place. And so this is the most important part to build on. Okay, next is legislator. During this research or during this project, I surveyed all strategic plans, all websites of Ministry of Education, UNRWA, and NGOs. The result is that we did no clear vision of how we can implement and why should we implement inclusive education in Gaza, and how we can teach in Palestine, and how we can teach students at universities and the schools. Even universities. I searched all universities. No university has mentioned anything about inclusive education. Just hinting about disability, just to me, it's just decorative thing. But in reality, it reflects policymakers. If you look at the strategic plan for the next 5 years of X university and Y university, and nothing is mentioned about this policies and strategic goals in the strategic plan, that is a shame, really. Next is all policies are made for persons with disabilities, and they were not involved and engaged in them. So you're not part of the decision maker, and this is a fact. And this has become very clear during COVID-19 when different ministries established different committees to tackle the impact of COVID-19. And no one with disability was consulted or involved or included in these committees. Again, also specialization in specialized or experts in inclusive education are very few, and not, especially among policymakers. Not involving and engaging the community in the process of teaching, and involving parents and families. So we are one society: schools, universities, and parents and family members, even brothers and sisters, because it's not enough for the mother or the father to know how to deal with a child with disability, but also it's important for brothers and sisters and the rest of the family. And last, the point is that nothing about us without us. Disability oppression and your empowerment, and this we are echoing now what James Chanton wrote a book in 1990s about nothing about us without us. So we can't work for disability, for person with disabilities, without involving them as a part of the decision-making process or committees. Next is ink on paper. Even what is written on some strategic plan is not is only ink on paper. Why I'm saying so? Because I surveyed, as I mentioned, all the strategic plans. Look at this as an example. Teaching education strategy in Palestine, which was developed in 2008. Until now, it wasn't updated. I searched it, I found no single word on inclusive education. And this is a strategic plan to develop teachers, how our teachers would be. And if teachers know nothing about this, they will be perfect in teaching students with disability. Am I right? Hello? Are you still here? Okay. So here, nothing is said about, also in universities, nothing is said about upgrading and building the capacity of university teachers in how, and also administrative staff, how to deal, how to communicate with them, as we will see in a minute. Okay. Next is, there is one wide gap between what is written on the strategic plans and what is done. And no evaluation process to see to what extent we move forward to achieve these goals or these objectives. Even if there are, but suppose there are, but to what extent? So no monitoring mechanism about the practices or for the practice or of the practices done at schools and universities regarding inclusive practices. No evaluation and implementation, evaluation of the implementation of the policy, which claim to promote inclusive education. Also, I give an example. One of my colleagues, he is a professor in social work. And social work, you know, is related to disability and psychology and society, etc. And I was talking with him, and then he was saying the deaf and dumb, referring to this. And I till now, I remember, it rings bell in my mind. How come? Man, you are a model professor in social work, and you refer to the program we just created at IUG, happily, the first program, as I mentioned in a minute. And you say the deaf and dumb, only not without a student, the deaf and dumb, that's it. And I got mad at that, and I think you sympathize with me when I get mad, or empathize. Okay, next, a dominant traditional teacher-centered pedagogy, lecturing. are not evolving. If we do this with all the students, victims will be students with disability. As always, they come and report to me or to other teachers. For example, slideshows. They use PowerPoint like this, the teacher, and he has one or two students with visual disability. And the teacher says, okay, if you look at the map, you will see, okay, or you look at this example, or this question and answer the question. And he is giving deaf ear and blind eye to the students who is in his or her class. Because I don't blame them. They need to be trained. They need to be informed. They know nothing. So they are also victims. Their pedagogical competence has been disabled and needs to be enabled. Okay, so yes, it happens. These are just some challenges and difficulties when teachers do not respond to students with disability or do not cooperate with them when they come to their offices, or during COVID-19 do not respond to their emails or WhatsApp messages or whatever. Next, implementation. Lack of using, I have to finish soon. Lack of using teaching strategies to address the needs of learners with visual impairment, etc., etc. So they need to be trained. We need to build the capacity of Palestinian teachers, school teachers, and university teachers. By the way, I mean also by university teachers, school education teacher educators. Who needs to start with? Because they are the manufacturer of the teachers. And if they haven't got these competencies, what happens to their product? Defect. Okay. I will jump next to communication. Communication in the wider sense, I mean. Not only language communication, even body communication, even smiling, facial expressions, even what to say, what to choose, to use sign language or not to use it. That's the question, to be or not to be. So here we're talking about in nothing to leave none behind policy. So we need to communicate with them, as I said, in a wider sense, linguistically, physical, body language, facial expressions, etc. Especially when we deal with students with hearing difficulties, they prefer body language or sign language. Some of them, for example, do not respond to them or talk to them with etiquette, with politeness, with gentleness, with kindness, as we do with each other. Okay, in fact, they need more of communication skills to communicate, because they are very sensitive and they can observe everything. To the contrary of their beliefs of some school teachers and university teachers that, okay, he can see. Although in our culture, there is a verse in the Holy Quran blaming Prophet Muhammad for not smiling in the face of a blind man. So whenever this, Allah blamed Muhammad, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and then whenever this man came to Prophet Muhammad, he said, welcome to the man that Allah asked me to smile on his face. Although he can't see whether he is smiling or not. But this means we should go beyond the limits in terms of being so kind and so truthful and so communicative to them. Next is, using some terminology. I gave you about that idea, what is acceptable in green, what is not, confined, restricted, wheelchair, bound, handicapped, crippled. These are nowadays, we need, in fact, what we call it here, disability inclusive communication guidelines, code of conduct, code of communication. We should develop this. We lack this. How to say to them, what to say, even when we write in our narrative, what words or our spoken language, what we say. I will jump to facilities. I think is the easiest in terms of 43% of all Palestinians lack accessible toilets and stairs or ramps. Leave apart from other things, but these are as basic rights to these children in Gaza. I will share with you briefly some stories of hope, resilience, and success. There are plus involving integrating children for a certain age, depending on level of disability. In Gaza, there are two schools, one for students who have complete deafness and one for complete blindness. And both are run, just were recently developed, both are run also by teachers and administrators who have disability. So, but that's not inclusive education, but it's better than nothing. If they can get integrated in other schools, because if they go to these to other schools, mainstream schools, they will be lost, will be ignored. Look, this is one. It's the school name is, as you can see, Light and Hope School. This for visually impaired. It's called Light and. It's the only orphan school in Gaza Strip. Okay, next. These are some photos of the secondary school children, and they are celebrating the Palestinian identity, tradition, and heritage, wearing Palestinian dress and using Palestinian and Arabic proverbs and explaining their meaning. Some of the extracurricular activities in the school. This is the library where, and also they use Braille to write and to work and focus. As a workshop like this place. I would no time to talk about IUG and Birzeit University are inclusive partners of higher education because they are both universities are leading inclusive education and serving the students with disability, plus partners in our projects, Birzeit. Plus, I was educated at Birzeit, and I am working at IUG. I'm not extremist to that extent, but I am loyal, and because they are really, through statistics and facts, they are doing the best. And Dina knows this, because both universities are working in this project. Okay, I will jump. This now IUG. Why IUG? Islamic University of Gaza. I can say because there are 3 centers IUG created over the last 22 years. That no university in Palestine has such centers. First one established 22 years ago for visually impaired and started accepting students at the university who are completely blind and have visual disability, and now some of them got their master from America and Britain and came back to Gaza as a result. Second, we established, or IUG University established Irada. Irada in Arabic means determination, will, strong will, steel will, for training those who have disability on vocational and technical training, not academic track. Especially, we established it after the First and Second War. There were many people who became just overnight disabled. Young men, women, children. So we opened the door of hope to them through training, as you will see some of their products. Until now it's going on, and this is a community related and targeting the community members, not school. You don't have to have the academic and the school level and ladder to join that. Anybody can join it for any craft he or she wants to take to enjoy. Last, we developed at IUG the first, and until now it's the first and the last diploma for deaf, completely deaf. The first group, and I hope you will enjoy the video. I'll show you about this group who joined the first group to join a Palestinian university so far. sorry. Okay, these are some of the crafts. Whether with disabilities, whether physical, whether hearing, whatever disability, they produce something like that, gifts, and they sell them. And then they open their own shops. So while they are training, learning, and getting training, they produce something. So the cost will be paid for their training. And then when they finish, they can open their business and become independent. These are some also of their products. So if you come to Gaza, we will give you gifts from these. Okay. Also photography, they learn how, that's a good thing, so they can be photographers or video photographers. And also, as you can see, other vocational thing. And now we come to 3 to 4 minutes, 3 minutes, I think, video, and that's the crema over the cake. That's it. And thank you. After it, only thank you. Okay, just we will watch the video, and then I'm so sorry it took me longer, though I jumped over certain things, but the story is a novel, not novella. Okay, yeah, please. Not the one before, the slide before. That's it. Okay.
Palestine, the university offers a special major to the deaf students, which makes us equal to normal people. We hope this would develop, and we hope more attention would be paid to deaf students. Thank you, of course. We are very happy. In Palestine, the Islamic University now has a major for deaf students, I felt very happy and enthusiastic to register. I called all my friends and told them to register too. They all did and are very happy with this major. Indeed, we are all thrilled, and we came here to the university to point out the facilities we need as deaf students.
Thank you, ladies. These are the pioneers.